It started with the smell of pine and the quiet hum of early summer in the mountains, the kind of morning where sunlight filters through the trees in soft golden ribbons, and the air carries the faint sweetness of blooming wildflowers. The neighborhood was tucked neatly against the forest's edge, a collection of expensive homes built where wilderness met wealth. Most residents loved the serenity. Most, except for Karen. Karen was the self-appointed enforcer of the HOA's countless rules. Her house sat right at the top of the hill, painted an aggressive shade of beige, and her eyes seemed to scan every driveway, every lawn, every mailbox for violations. She didn't just live under the HOA, she was the HOA. Every small infraction, from unmowed grass to trash cans left out for an hour too long, somehow found its way into her inbox and then into a formal complaint. The story really began when the bear appeared. It wasn't the first time a black bear wandered near the neighborhood. Living this close to the forest meant occasional visits from deer, raccoons, and yes, sometimes bears. Usually they were more curious than dangerous. They'd sniff around a bird feeder or paw at a trash can before moving on. But this bear, larger, more confident, seemed to like one property in particular, mine. It started innocently. One night, my motion light flicked on, and through the kitchen window I saw it. A dark, lumbering figure nosing around the garden. It stood there calmly, sniffing the air, the white patch on its chest catching the moonlight. Instead of fear, I felt awe. The bear wasn't causing harm. It looked peaceful, almost shy. I didn't chase it away. I just watched as it ambled off into the trees. By morning, word had spread. Karen's HOA text alert went out to everyone in the community before I'd even had coffee. Wildlife sighting near Pine Ridge Drive, be cautious. Keep garbage sealed. HOA investigating cause. Of course, investigating cause meant finding someone to blame. And in this case, that someone was me. Within a day, a printed notice appeared on my front door. Feeding wildlife, violation. According to Karen, my negligent waste management was attracting dangerous animals. I'd been here long enough to know this was how it always started, with paper notices, then warnings, then HOA fines. But I hadn't left food out. My trash bins were sealed. The bear had simply wandered over from the forest, like any wild animal would. Still, logic never got far with Karen. Over the next few days, she started patrolling the area. Every morning, she'd walk past my property, phone in hand, snapping pictures of anything she deemed suspicious. Fallen fruit, open windows, a compost bin she swore smelled too sweet. Each day, she looked more determined to prove that I was responsible for the bear's visits. Then came the night that changed everything. It was just after sunset. A warm breeze drifted through the trees, and the faint sound of crickets filled the air. I was inside reading when the motion light flashed again. This time I heard it before I saw it. The soft crunch of paws on gravel, the hollow thunk of a bin lid shifting. I peeked out the window. The bear was back, rummaging calmly through the side yard. It wasn't aggressive or scared. It just looked hungry. I let it be, but I wasn't the only one watching. From across the street, Karen's porch light flicked on. Then another flash, a phone camera. Within seconds, I heard her voice echo across the cul-de-sac, shrill and furious, though the words were indistinct through the glass. She was recording, probably calling the HOA board, maybe even the sheriff. I turned off my light and stepped back, hoping she'd give up. She didn't. Karen stormed across the street, waving her arms and shouting toward the bear. Even through the closed windows, her voice carried, high-pitched and commanding, like she thought the bear would obey her. The animal froze for a moment, sniffed the air, then looked right at her. Instead of running away, it simply turned and began walking, slowly, toward her. Karen stopped mid-sentence. Her flashlight wobbled. For the first time, I saw something rare in her expression. Hesitation. The bear took another step. Then another. Its sheer size filled the driveway, its black fur glistening under the streetlight. Karen's yelling turned into a nervous laugh as she fumbled for her keys. She started backing away toward her truck, muttering to herself, trying to keep her composure. But the bear didn't stop. It reached her driveway, sniffed at a grocery bag she'd dropped earlier, and pawed at it curiously. Karen's truck door slammed. The engine roared to life, headlights flaring. The bear startled, then did something no one could have predicted. It climbed. Slowly, powerfully, it hoisted itself up onto the front of the truck, one heavy paw after another, until it was sitting right on the hood, staring through the windshield at the trembling woman inside. Its claws scraped the paint. The metal creaked. Karen screamed, a sound sharp enough to pierce through the night. The bear didn't attack. It just sat there for a moment, curious, breathing heavily against the glass. Then, as calmly as it had come, it climbed down, dropped to the pavement, and lumbered back toward the trees. Silence followed. Then came the distant wail of a car alarm and the unmistakable sound of Karen's tires spinning out of the driveway as she fled uphill. By morning, the story had spread like wildfire. Neighbors whispered about the bear on the truck, each version more dramatic than the last. Some said it tried to break the windshield. Others claimed Karen had fought it off with a broom. Photos circulated in the community chat, a blurry image of a dark mass perched on a shiny hood. The HOA sent out another official notice that afternoon. Effective immediately, all residents are required to install wildlife-proof trash containers. Feeding or harboring animals is strictly prohibited. Violations will result in fines. The wording was clear. They blamed me. But this time I wasn't angry. I was curious. Why had the bear chosen my yard? Why did it keep coming back? And most importantly, why did it seem almost protective of the property? Over the next few nights, I set up a small camera near the garden just to see. What I caught on video would not only surprise me, it would change everything, because the bear wasn't coming for food anymore. It was coming for something else. Something or someone it remembered. The camera footage revealed more than I expected. At first, it showed the bear wandering near the garden, sniffing the air with deliberate calm. But it didn't head for the trash bins or compost pile like most bears would. Instead, it moved toward a particular corner of the yard, where the old apple tree stood. There, beneath the branches, was a patch of ground I hadn't paid much attention to before. The bear pawed at the dirt gently, then sat down, staring into the darkness, almost waiting. It wasn't searching for food. It was visiting. The next night it came again. Same routine, same quiet presence. It sat under the tree, breathing slowly, eyes half closed. There was something hauntingly peaceful about it, something that didn't fit the narrative Karen was pushing. The dangerous beast threatening the neighborhood. This bear wasn't a threat. It was mourning or remembering. I didn't know what or who. By now, Karen had turned the incident into her personal crusade. Her truck hood, still bearing the faint marks of the bear's claws, had become proof of her trauma. She spoke of it to anyone who'd listen, at HOA meetings, at mailboxes, even on local community forums. She claimed the bear had targeted her because someone was training it, possibly feeding it to become aggressive. Her eyes always flicked toward my house when she said it. The HOA board, most of whom were too intimidated to cross her, nodded along. Soon after, I received another notice. Due to ongoing wildlife incidents, resident is required to submit a safety compliance report within 7 days. A safety compliance report for a bear I hadn't even interacted with. Karen's obsession deepened. She began driving her truck past my property several times a day, slowing down to glare through the windows. Once I caught her taking photos of the security camera I'd installed. Another time I saw her walking along the edge of my yard, muttering under her breath, holding a clipboard. To her, this wasn't about safety anymore. It was about control. Meanwhile, the footage from my camera grew stranger. Every few nights, the bear would return at the same hour, pause under the apple tree, then look toward the forest as if expecting something or someone to appear. It never stayed long. After a few minutes, it would walk back into the woods, leaving only deep paw prints and the quiet rustle of branches behind. I decided to do some digging of my own. That apple tree had been there long before I bought the house. The previous owner, an older man named Daniel, had passed away years earlier. The house had sat empty for a while before I moved in. The neighbors didn't talk about him much, but one elderly resident, Mrs. Clark, remembered him well. When I asked her casually about the tree, her expression softened. She told me Daniel used to feed a bear every summer. A small cub that had wandered into his yard one day after its mother was hit by a car on the nearby road. He nursed it back to health, fed it apples, and even left out bowls of water during droughts. The bear eventually returned to the wild, but every year around the same time it would come back to the same yard, sit under the same tree, and stay a while. It wasn't just a bear, it was his bear. The realization hit hard. This animal wasn't looking for food or trouble. It was keeping a ritual, returning to the place where it had once felt safe. And unknowingly, I had become the caretaker of that legacy. But Karen didn't care about that kind of story. To her, facts didn't matter, only control, appearances, and the illusion of authority. The night after I spoke with Mrs. Clark, a new commotion erupted outside. The sound of a car horn blaring, followed by angry shouting, echoed across the street. I ran to the window. Karen's truck was parked halfway into my driveway, headlights glaring into the trees. She was standing beside it, waving a flashlight and yelling into the darkness. At first, I didn't see the bear. But then, from the shadows near the apple tree, it appeared. Massive, calm, and unafraid. The beam of Karen's flashlight caught its eyes, and for a second, everything froze. Then, in the chaos of shouts and engine noise, Karen threw something, an empty soda can or a stone. It clattered near the bear's paws. That was enough. The animal stood tall on its hind legs, let out a deep guttural huff, and began moving toward her. Karen screamed, stumbling backward toward her truck. The bear didn't charge, it didn't need to. Its sheer presence was enough to send her scrambling into the cab. The truck door slammed and the headlights swung wildly as she reversed, tires spinning. She sped off, leaving a trail of dust and panic behind her. The bear lowered itself back to all fours, walked to the apple tree, and sat down again. For a long moment, it just stayed there, silent, unmoving. Then it looked directly at my house, as if acknowledging that I had seen what happened. It lingered, then slowly turned toward the forest and disappeared among the trees. The next morning, Karen was already in full retaliation mode. Flyers appeared on mailboxes warning of a rogue bear problem. She demanded an emergency HOA meeting to vote on immediate intervention. In her version of the story, the bear had attacked her, and my refusal to cooperate made me an accessory to the danger. She even hinted she might contact animal control or the media. Her actions were reckless, but her fear was real, and that made her dangerous. Over the next few days, she set up her own motion-activated cameras around the cul-de-sac, claiming they were for community protection. But it was clear who she was watching. One of the cameras was angled straight at my driveway, another at the side of my house. The HOA allowed it, of course. They always did when Karen was involved. I stayed quiet. I didn't want a confrontation. I just wanted to protect the bear from her hysteria. But the forest was changing. Animal control trucks began driving through the area, leaving traps baited with fruit. Signs were posted warning residents to stay indoors at night. Neighbors who once admired wildlife now whispered about that dangerous animal haunting the neighborhood. And at the center of it all stood Karen, fearful, proud, and ready to take credit for any solution. It should have ended there, but nature doesn't follow HOA rules. On the fifth night after the new traps were set, the bear returned once more. The cameras caught it pacing near the apple tree, restless, uneasy. Something was different. The calm was gone. Its movements were sharp, agitated. A truck engine sounded in the distance. The bear turned, sniffed the air, and began moving toward the street. The same street where Karen's truck was parked again. Only this time she wasn't there to chase it off. She was waiting with a plan of her own, and what happened next would turn the neighborhood's paranoia into full-blown chaos. The night began with tension in the air, thick, electric, and uneasy. The forest, usually alive with the hum of insects, had gone still. Even the wind felt heavier, pressing down on the neighborhood like a warning no one wanted to hear. The only sounds came from the faint rumble of engines and the steady blink of orange lights reflecting off mailboxes. Animal control had returned. By now, the story had spread beyond the neighborhood. Karen had called the county office earlier that day, insisting that a violent bear was stalking residents. She described near attacks, property damage, and psychological trauma. Her version of events, exaggerated and dramatic, caught attention. A small crew from a local news outlet even stopped by to film concerned homeowners. And who better to represent them than Karen herself, standing in front of her scuffed-up truck, retelling her terrifying encounter with the creature that had leapt onto her vehicle. Every time she spoke, the bear became bigger, meaner, more monstrous. The HOA backed her completely. Notices went out warning residents to stay indoors at night. Trash bins had to be locked inside garages. Motion lights were now mandatory. And behind it all was Karen's crusade, a battle not just against a wild animal, but against anyone who dared to challenge her authority. That evening, just before sunset, I noticed her truck parked in its usual spot, right at the edge of the cul-de-sac facing the forest. But there was something new, a large covered metal cage near her driveway. One of the animal control traps, the kind baited with fruit and meat, designed to lure in something hungry or desperate. Karen was standing beside it, arms crossed, supervising the setup like she owned the operation. Two officers tried to explain the process to her, but she waved them off. She wanted control, wanted to be seen as the woman who saved the neighborhood from the beast. But what she didn't understand was that bears, especially this one, don't fall into traps easily. They're cautious, intelligent. They remember. That night, the forest came alive again. Cameras caught the faint rustle of movement near the tree line. The bear was back, but its posture was different. No longer calm, no longer lingering by the apple tree, it was alert, sniffing the air, ears twitching at every sound. It moved slowly, warily toward the neighborhood, its dark shape gliding between the shadows. In the footage, the bear paused by the apple tree as it always did. But then, something caught its attention, the scent of the bait drifting from Karen's driveway. It turned, hesitant, and began to move in that direction. At nearly the same moment, Karen's porch light flicked on. She was waiting. From behind the curtains, she watched, phone in hand, ready to record. Maybe she wanted more proof for her story. Maybe she wanted another viral moment to post online. Either way, she couldn't resist getting involved. Her arrogance wouldn't let her sit still. The bear reached the street and sniffed at the trap. Its breath fogged in the cool air. It took one cautious step, then another. The fruit inside gleamed under the light, but it didn't move closer. It circled the cage once, sniffing, sensing the unnatural scent of metal and oil. Then it stopped, raised its head, and looked directly at the house. Inside, Karen moved closer to the window, the glow from her phone reflecting on the glass. That was when something unexpected happened. The bear turned away from the trap and walked straight toward the truck. It wasn't running or growling, just moving with slow, deliberate power. The camera picked up the scrape of its claws against the pavement as it approached, the faint rattle of Karen's wind chimes swinging in the still night. When it reached the truck, it sniffed the hood, the same place it had perched weeks before. Then, in one smooth motion, it climbed up again. The truck rocked under its weight. The alarm blared to life. Lights flashed, horn blaring into the night. From inside the house, a shriek pierced through the sound. Curtains flung open. Karen stumbled onto the porch, yelling something into her phone, waving her arms wildly as if she could chase the animal away again. The bear didn't move. It sat there motionless, staring at her. For nearly a full minute, it didn't make a sound. It just breathed, slow and heavy, its gaze fixed on the trembling woman. And then, without warning, it reached down with one paw and swiped the mirror clean off the truck. Karen screamed, turned, and ran back inside. The bear shifted its weight, the metal groaning under it, before climbing down and walking toward the forest. But before it disappeared, it stopped at the apple tree one last time, brushing its side against the bark. Then it was gone. The neighborhood erupted in chaos. Alarms, shouts, flashing lights. Everyone came outside at once. Karen stood in her driveway, shaking, pointing toward the trees, demanding someone do something. Animal control officers arrived minutes later, checking the traps, examining the paw prints. They didn't find the bear, but they found something else, a half-eaten apple lying near the tree line, far from the baited cage. It was clear where the bear's loyalty had been. By morning, the HOA had issued an emergency bulletin. Bears sighted near residential areas. Animal control will be conducting nightly patrols. Residents should remain indoors. Karen's version of events spread again, how the bear had attacked her truck for the second time, how it had become a menace that needed to be removed permanently. She even started organizing volunteers for what she called the Bear Safety Committee, a group dedicated to ensuring the neighborhood's protection. But something had shifted among the neighbors. People weren't as convinced anymore. Some had seen the footage from their own cameras, how calm the bear had been, how it hadn't attacked anyone. Others began to whisper that maybe Karen had gone too far. Maybe she was the problem, not the animal. Meanwhile, I continued to check my recordings. The bear hadn't come back that night, or the next. The forest was quiet again, unnervingly so. I hoped it had gone deeper into the wilderness, away from the noise, the traps, and the people who misunderstood it. But Karen wasn't done. Her obsession was reaching a breaking point. She couldn't stand being doubted. The more people questioned her story, the more erratic she became. She started patrolling again, driving slowly through the streets at midnight with her headlights off, claiming she was watching for movement. She even left food scraps near the trap, trying to lure the bear back so she could finally catch it and prove everyone wrong. Her arrogance, her hunger for control, it was all going to come back to her. And it did. 3 nights later, the bear returned, but not to the apple tree. It came straight to Karen's driveway. The camera caught everything, the soft crunch of gravel, the glint of eyes in the dark, the slow rise of a shadow behind her truck. The bear wasn't alone this time. In the faint light, smaller shapes moved behind it. Cubs. 2 of them, barely half its size, sticking close to their mother as she approached the very trap that had been set for her. She sniffed the bait, pawed the ground, and then, without touching the food, she turned and placed herself between the cubs and the cage, as if to shield them. That was when Karen's front door opened again. She stepped out, phone in hand, flashlight cutting through the darkness. Her voice rose, shrill, commanding, echoing through the still night. The bear stood tall, her cubs pressed against her legs. And then, for the 3rd and final time, the creature climbed onto the truck. It wasn't curiosity this time, it was defiance. The truck rocked harder than before. The alarm screamed into the sky. The cubs watched from the shadows, and Karen, frozen on the porch, finally seemed to understand the one thing she had refused to see all along. This wasn't her neighborhood's enemy. It was a mother protecting her own. As the headlights flickered and the sound of sirens grew louder in the distance, the bear turned its head once more toward Karen, then leapt off the truck and vanished into the trees, her cubs following close behind. When the officers arrived, there was nothing left but claw marks, paw prints, and the faint smell of apples in the air. The neighborhood would never see that bear again. But Karen? She wasn't ready to let the story end there. Not yet. Morning arrived gray and heavy, the kind of dawn that carried the smell of rain and endings. The neighborhood was silent, drained of the usual chatter of early walkers and barking dogs. The night before had left its mark. Deep paw prints in the mud, torn earth by the driveway, the shattered side mirror of Karen's truck glinting beneath the weak sunlight. Karen stood there for hours, pacing in her robe, clutching her phone, waiting for someone from the HOA or animal control to arrive. But when they did, the energy was different. The officers were calm, cautious, but unconvinced. The neighbors watched from porches and windows, whispering quietly among themselves. For the first time, Karen didn't look like the hero of her own story. She looked cornered. The trap she had demanded was empty, untouched, and the bait lay rotting inside it. The officers examined the scene, noting the cub tracks beside the larger prints. Their faces softened. They'd seen this pattern before, a mother bear returning one last time to guide her young away from danger. The situation, they said, was resolved. The bear family had likely moved on, deeper into the forest where they belonged. But for Karen, that wasn't enough. She wanted proof that it was gone, and more than that, she wanted to punish someone for what she'd endured. Before noon, she called another emergency HOA meeting. It was held in her driveway under the pretense of community safety, but everyone knew it was about her. Folding chairs lined the curb. A whiteboard stood beside her truck, smeared with hastily written phrases: wildlife crisis, property damage, accountability. Karen spoke with a voice that trembled between authority and desperation. She blamed the ongoing negligence of homeowners who refused to cooperate. She named me directly this time, calling my yard a feeding zone and my silence suspicious. She demanded that I pay for repairs to her truck and for the cost of installing new neighborhood fencing. But as she spoke, the crowd's faces shifted. Some frowned. Some looked away. They'd seen the footage, heard the officers, watched the panic spiral out of control. And now, as Karen's voice rose higher, people began to murmur. A neighbor finally spoke up. He said he'd seen Karen throwing things at the bear. Another mentioned she had left scraps near the trap. Someone else reminded her that she'd driven around at night with her headlights off, scaring people more than the animal ever had. Karen's voice faltered. The authority she had wrapped herself in for years was unraveling thread by thread. Her arms crossed tightly, her eyes darting from face to face, searching for someone who still supported her. But no one spoke. The meeting ended without a vote. Within days, things started changing. The HOA board, tired of the chaos, announced that new leadership elections would be held early. Neighbors who had once stayed silent were now openly frustrated. The constant fines, the endless rules, the surveillance cameras, Karen's brand of control had gone too far. As for the bear, she was gone, but her presence lingered in small, quiet ways. The apple tree had been stripped of fruit, but new blossoms were forming, pale pink and delicate. The dirt beneath it, where she had once sat, was smooth again. Each morning a few fallen apples appeared there as if placed by unseen hands. Whether they came from passing deer or a neighbor paying quiet tribute, no one knew. I left the security camera running for a few more weeks, just in case. The recording showed nothing. No movement, no shapes in the dark. The forest was still. It felt like peace had finally returned. Karen, however, couldn't let it go. She filed official complaints with the county, wrote long posts on the community forum, even tried to start a petition demanding further investigation. But people had stopped listening. Without an audience, her fury had nowhere to go. Her downfall came quietly. Late one evening, a delivery truck backed into her driveway, accidentally clipping one of the animal control cages she'd refused to have removed. The impact set off a chain of noise, metal scraping pavement, alarms blaring, her porch light flickering on and off. Neighbors came outside again, phones in hand, thinking maybe the bear had returned. But what they saw instead was Karen, standing in her robe, shouting at the delivery driver, waving her clipboard like a weapon while the rain poured around her. Someone filmed it. By morning, the clip had made its way online. The same local station that once ran her wildlife emergency story picked it up again. Only this time, she wasn't the hero. The headline read, "Local HOA President Sparks Chaos in Empty Trap Incident." It spread fast. Within a week, the HOA board quietly asked for her resignation. By the end of the month, a "for sale" sign appeared in her yard. The neighborhood softened after she left. The rules relaxed. Neighbors started talking again, helping each other rather than policing one another. The forest remained close, peaceful, unbothered by the drama that had unfolded at its edge. One morning, a few months later, I walked out to the apple tree and noticed something small near the roots. A tuft of black fur caught on a branch. It could have been from any animal, but I knew. Somehow the bear had passed through again. Not to stay, not to stir trouble, just to visit the place that once felt safe, the place where memory still lived. I left an apple there that day, not as bait, but as a thank you for the quiet reminder that not everything wild needs to be feared, and that sometimes the real danger comes not from nature, but from the people who refuse to understand it. The story of the bear on the truck eventually faded from local gossip, replaced by new neighborhood tales. But every once in a while, someone would mention it, always with a small smile, always ending the same way. The bear wasn't the problem. And they were right, because the truth was simple. The bear had only ever defended its peace. It was Karen who couldn't leave it alone.